I've had clients actually specify for us to pull out on the media schedule how much will each spaza owner be paid for the specific sites that are being booked, because the clients want to ensure that they can also report upwards on that side. I think from a kind of media commercial perspective, what becomes interesting about the upliftment piece is not only that you're uplifting businesses and helping to grow businesses, but you can also tap into different budgets, because if there's a CSI component or an upliftment component that is coupled in with the out of home media, you can then tap into the CSI budget and have your campaign hopefully get more budget for your campaign because you're accessing different parts of the budget on the client side. So I wanted to ask, could you share with us, what are you guys doing in that space from an upliftment perspective, and how are you working with your landlords in the communities?
First of all, we obviously got great relationships with our landlords. And like I mentioned, it's at these convenience hubs. So not just a tavern or a spaza shop or a Shisanyama. There's multiple stores within this hub. So we pay them a monthly revenue. We pay for their electricity on a monthly basis. That obviously is a cost saver for them. But we've also ensured that there's backup power. We assist with maintenance of their properties, whichever way we can possibly assist on that front.
Welcome to today's episode of Beyond the Billboard, and thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And just a reminder, we are the first and only out-of-home podcast in South Africa. Today, we are so excited to welcome Network X, one of our sponsors, to join us for this episode. We're going to be discussing the rich and layered landscape of the mass market and the township space in South Africa, as well as touching on their recent rebrand. We're excited to welcome Jason Steyn, who's the sales director for Network X. Thanks for joining us, Jay.
Thanks, Liv. Thanks, Kirst. So excited to be here.
It's great to have you. And to get us into the episode, could you share with us, what is the recent rebranding and positioning of the Streets of Speaking? What does it mean for Network X, and what is it all about?
We've been working on developing our company over the past 10 years, to be honest with you, and trying to basically establish ourselves in the correct manner to actually come out big and bold, not hiding away anymore as this little media owner, but really coming out to show people what we are capable of, but also giving insight into what we've learned over the years. You know the old saying that you only have first time at a first impression. Impressions last. So we did come out, but we didn't come out big and bold. So throughout the years, we've built up some data, insights. We've communicated and engaged with our environments, and really found that the streets are speaking. This is a funky environment. People are fashionable. They're talking about fashion. They're talking about the latest music trends, movies. What footwear are you wearing? It's just an exciting environment. So based on that, we came out with a different look and feel. It's a little bit more funky. So yeah, essentially what we've done now from the 1st of March in our new launch is to try showcase all of that. What have we learned? What have people told us? And really come out with it authentically and show that the streets are speaking, and obviously let clients and brands and everyone know that this market is talking.
I love how you've touched on the research and the data angle that you guys have taken. I think being active in the township and the mass market space, we understand how nuanced and layered that market is. There's so much opportunity. And we also understand that the mass market should be treated in a different way, because the audience and the way that people move in that environment is so different to how they would be moving in some of the other areas and suburbs that we look at. It really is an environment on its own that has got so many different ways of people behaving in those communities. And it kind of leads me to the next question I wanted to ask you is, would you be able to share any of the insights or the campaign data that you guys have gathered, or any of the research that you referenced with us?
Because we play in the township environment, specifically the residential township environment. And 2 years ago, we launched our taxi rank environment. So if I can talk more on the township environment first and the residential environment first. we found that that we actually reaching around 20 million people on a monthly basis. Okay, if you take into consideration the township environment is made up of around 22 million people. Okay, that contributes around 5% to our GDP. Okay, so that's massive. Now, if we look at our township environment reaching 20 million people, and there are around 20 million people in a township, I think that's quite significant. And we figured that out, and then we delved a lot deeper into trying to understand. Cool, we're not just reaching these people; we want to engage with them and interact with them. And if I can touch on this quickly, is one of the campaigns that we ran previously is with the Ikolka. And we found this out only after they ran their campaign, but they wanted to give out free POS devices to the convenience hubs around our sites. And that was just another avenue for us to go, okay, cool, they're giving out POS devices. We can now track, who's buying what, when they're buying, and we have the relationships with these owners of these convenience stores, spaza shops, shishinyamas, car washes. So because of that, we were able to also collect data from them, which is incredible, obviously. But moving on to like the taxi rank environment, playing in that field has been a completely new learning curve. Not just from the understanding of people are going there to commute or catch a cab. Since installing these screens, which we have, but since installing them, we understood that this is not necessarily a place to travel from, but a place to actually go to, hang out with friends, go buy food, go buy clothes, go buy your everyday goods. And we also found that the dwell time there, we average it at around 30 to 40 minutes, but it's actually a lot higher than that. So all these insights and that we're still collecting, there's so much more, has really helped us, showcase these environments to the fullest.
Thank you for sharing that, Jay. And I think I've got a couple of questions. And I think my first one is around your inventory that's placed in the township residential areas. I think what's really important to speak on is the amount of pedestrian traffic that you're also reaching with that inventory, right? We often talk about what is the reach from a car point of view, or car counts or traffic counts, but there's such a large portion of the South African audience that still walks, and walking is still one of the top 3 modes of transport in South Africa, which represents around 20% of South Africans as per the National Households Travel Survey that was last done. And your inventory in particular in these residential areas, is targeting both your traffic, but as well as pedestrian traffic too. What I wanted to circle back on is that you spoke about those point of sale devices and the campaign that you ran. And what I found quite interesting is that you said that there was some data that you derived from that, and you're able to obviously utilize that to understand more about the audiences that you're advertising to. And what I thought was quite interesting is, what I wanted to ask was, did any of that type of data, because that's quite rich data to see what people are purchasing, what type of products, was any of that kind of fueled into this Streets Are Speaking, rebrand, and kind of branding and positioning? Did any of that feature in? Because I know you were talking about, you realized, you were saying it needed to be funky, it needed to be fashion forward, it's very culturally nuanced, but also very like on the pulse when it comes to trends and stuff within these communities, right? Like it's fashion forward, it's music forward, it's like really on the pulse when it comes to these trends. And I wanted to know if any of those insights that came out perhaps of those point of sale devices, and that type of rich data fed into your rebrand, or perhaps is feeding into how you're approaching your sales strategies for your clients.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, actually. So it's extremely interesting to see the spending habits of people. I mean, this is obviously due to our relationships with the landlords. In turn, it's going to benefit them if we're getting specific brands to advertise on the boards, right? So based on this data from the POS devices, from our landlords giving us insight, specifically from the taverns, let me go from that point of view. We found that consumption of the likes of a Hennessy and a Moet, these very premium, expensive brands that you would sort of mainly see in the likes of a Santon, were being purchased at these taverns. And the increase in spend has been phenomenal over the past 5 years. We've only seen it grow. So the whole idea of brands thinking they need to advertise in the likes of a Santon to a market in Soweto, for instance, in my opinion, actually isn't the right way to go about it. A gentleman called Gigi Alcock, who wrote the book Kassynomics, but he gives phenomenal insight into the township and the Kasi environment. And this is just case in point. He got approached by the CEO of Capitec to figure out a way in how they could target the township environment. How could they increase the spend? Because that was the environment they wanted to go into. And GG actually found out that this is a R1 trillion market environment for a bank. And this is also based on the backyard rental environment, the taverns that are spending exuberant amounts on premium brands, and also the nightclubs. As an example, Conco, you know, the first weekend of them launching, they ran out of premium cognacs and champagnes. That's in a township. So anyway, it all gives you an idea as to you know, that environment and what has been told by previous people, but is also being shown through these tavern owners and sponsorship owners that have given us insight on what is being bought.
What you're saying really is you're also reminding me of an episode we had with Kabelo Kale with Views from a Township around there is this perception around the township and what brands are consumed and what products are used. And there are so many anomalies that exist there and so many falsehoods around which brands are popular or not popular or being used or not being used. So I love that you've touched on that with the thread through the data that comes through what you guys were able to see from those point of sale machines. I think it's really interesting. I know when I've been in the township space, specifically from a retail perspective, I've loved seeing how the pack sizes are different and how, you know, what you might see in a spaza shop or something at Park Station, for example, their pack sizes differ based on the environment and the audience. It's a commuting market. You're not going to be, you know, taking a huge bag of something. The sizes are smaller and those type of things. So I think that you've really given us a lot to think about there. I wanted to loop back on what you mentioned around the landlords. And I think that there's such an important piece around being active in the townships and the mass market that speak to the upliftment, as well as the small business development. You're able to partner with businesses in those areas, and actually those businesses benefit from allowing advertising on their murals, on their shops, in their spaces. And, you know, yes, we're in the media business, and yes, there are landlords that exist from a roadside perspective too. I think what's very different about the community in the township is that there is a really strong push to be able to, you can actually change somebody's life who owns a spaza shop. If you have got branding on their shop, you're able to sell it to your clients. Like you say, clients often, I've had clients actually specify for us to pull out on the media schedule, how much will each spaza owner be paid for the specific sites that are being booked, because the clients want to ensure that they can also report upwards on that side. I think from a kind of media commercial perspective, what becomes interesting about the upliftment piece is not only that you're uplifting businesses and helping to grow businesses, but you can also tap into different budgets, because if there's a CSI component or an upliftment component that is coupled in with the out-of-home media, you can then tap into the CSI budget and have your campaign, hopefully get more budget for your campaign, because you're accessing different parts of the budget on the client side. For clients who are not aware, I think it's always important to ask around, you know, what fees are being paid to the actual spaza owners or the wall mural owners in these specific environments where that is such a strong pull. So I wanted to ask, could you share with us, what are you guys doing in that space from an upliftment perspective, and how are you working with your landlords in the communities?
First of all, we obviously got great relationships with our landlords. And like I mentioned, it's at these convenience hubs. So not just a tavern or a spaza shop or a Shisanyama. There's multiple stores within this hub. So we pay them a monthly revenue, but we also want to keep them running nonstop. So we pay for the electricity on a monthly basis. That obviously is a cost saver for them. But we've also ensured that there's backup power. So that they are never going to not be running, which is incredible as well. We assist with maintenance of their properties, whichever way we can possibly assist on that front. And then another great initiative that we have, which I love, is with our reuse banners. We've basically collected or built up a list of residents within our environments that can't afford waterproofing or insulation for their housing. We've been trying to add on to our assisting small businesses, especially 100% Black owned South African companies. I've actually got a bottle here, which I want to show you. One of our ways, because we understand the township is full of art and vibrance, we wanted to support local artists. So we basically put their artwork on the bottle, and you've got their social media pages on the side, which you can scan and go to. And we're distributing this around to everyone. So it's a mini form of outdoor advertising, if you want to call it that. This is just a mini billboard that we're sharing to help out smaller
That's
businesses.
so cool.
I love that. Jay, can you tell us, how do you select the artists who are able to put their artwork onto the bottles? How do you curate that process? Tell us a little bit about it, because if anyone's listening that thinks, hold on, I might want my art to appear on a bottle. Can you tell us about that a bit? That's amazing.
Yeah, sure. Book a billboard and then I will let you know.
Okay, fair enough.
No, exactly. This is and it's nice to actually share because, like I said, we want to support other companies and we want to support the smaller businesses. So this company actually has a catalog of artists that gets put on every month. So we aren't just doing this once off. We're going to be doing this every single month, and every month we'll have different artists on. So every month expect some
Amazing.
more.
Yeah, I love that.
From Sunrise in Josie to lights that never sleep, we are Network X outdoor media specialists.
With over 1,000 media platforms across Gauteng, we don't just place ads.
We capture audiences right where life happens.
From premium digital displays to iconic city views,
We turn attention into impact every single day.
so join the experience. Network X out of home.
You did touch on something that I need to circle back to. It's in early days in the industry. And what I would love to do is, we have a lot of people in the industry that are new sales reps. And you obviously are in a sales director role now. What advice would you give to yourself entering this industry, this wild and wonderful and dynamic and complex and challenging industry that we're in, particularly in the out-of-home industry that we all navigate? What would your advice be?
Yeah, I think it's a tough question, but also very simple, based on our environment from an out of home standpoint. We understand that out of home's huge, but it's very small. So I think that from the fundamentals of incision and into a sales role, the best thing is to be present, be in the face of the decision makers. Don't limit yourself to just the out of home team as well, because the strategists, might have more insight, or the client lead might have more insights. Rather understand everyone, get to know everyone, go out, ask as many questions as possible, diagnose as thoroughly as possible. Really understand your client's needs without just pushing product as well. The worst thing I think is to just keep sending your company overview or saying, this is what I do, this is what I do, this is what I do. They probably know what you do, but do you know what they do? No.
What I love how you've unpacked is really what's standing out for me is around relationships, right? Is that, and I think you've done this very well in the industry. Both Chris and I have worked with you, and I think that it really shows how you've got to build relationships. I love how you touched on building relationships, not only with maybe the head of the account, maybe also going to the trading department or going to the implementation department. Who can you meet there? And I think that, thinking of that, I can think of a lot of media owners who've done that very well. And I think it's great to build those relationships. People move, accounts change, the reporting lines or the way that an account is set up can change very easily. And I think the more of a network you have within the agencies that you're working with, the better it will serve you down the line. So yeah, this relationships, everything is actually about how well you can build strong relationships and maintain those relationships. So I think you've given some great advice to anybody starting out in the industry listening to this. And I think that's a great place for us to finish off the episode today. I think it's been great to understand what Network X is doing in the space. I love that you shared the water bottle with us. I had no idea that was happening. It's such a culturally relevant thing to be doing. And I love the art piece that comes through with that too. I think that there's so so many artists in South Africa that are so talented and don't get as much exposure as they should. Oh,
Brand moment at the end, puts on the bucket hat. It's like that full stop exclamation mark moment.
yeah. I love it. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jay. It's been awesome to have you, and we've had such a fantastic chat. And yeah, it's been wonderful to have you with us today.
It really has. Thanks so much, Liv. Thanks, Kirst. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you to the sponsor of today's episode. Your support helps make Beyond the Billboard possible and helps us to bring you the first and only out-of-home podcast in South Africa.
Thanks for joining us today to go Beyond the Billboard. Subscribe to our podcast to ensure you don't miss out on our exciting content.
Join us again to go Beyond the Billboard.
1,